All right, we are here. Josh is here. He's out of shoulder surgery. It's not live at 5, so I can't even start with that. It's live at 5 on the Mountain Time Zone, guys. Thank you for being here. Probably sounds better now that the mic's over here. Myself, Jeb Smith, Josh Lewis here to answer real estate and mortgage questions as we do every week. We're actually not even certain that Josh's mic works, so we're going to throw it to Josh here to see if he has a voice.
Here's the mystery. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. It's a little echoey, but we got you.
All right. Yeah, we were having problems here with different mics, so we're going to switch to the one in the camera, so I won't sound as pretty as usual.
No, you're all good, brother. We can hear you. So thank you for being here. How's the shoulder? So Josh, for those of you who don't know, Josh had shoulder replacement surgery. What a week ago? A week ago Tuesday?
A week ago yesterday. So we're going on 8 days. So I say it's simultaneously awful and 1,000 times better than I thought that it would be. So a little painful, a little drugged up, all that fun stuff. But in the grand scheme of things, I'm not going to complain because I was expecting it to be much worse. I was going to actually, for everyone else's benefit, bring some pictures of my x-rays so you can see what it looks like to have a big chrome ball where the top of your shoulder used to be.
That you should show everybody exactly what that looks like. In fact, the fact Josh is on Oxycontin or something great. So if we might be able to poke the bear and get some really good stuff out of him. We'll see.
Truth serum. It's truth serum.
All right. So not a lot has happened in the market in the last week, really. We talked today, or you actually sent me an email earlier from one of the big lenders out there that has come out with a new product that's somewhat innovative. You can talk about that. We can talk about anything, what's happening with rates, just kind of get things moving here.
Yeah, you had a couple really high traffic videos last year from talking about some things that United Wholesale Mortgage was doing last year, and we kind of downplayed them that it wasn't really such a big deal of what they were doing. This one can be, and what they're doing is basically for borrowers with a 680 and above credit score, conforming Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac loans, conforming and high balance, so standard balance and high balance. They'll do them with no mortgage insurance as long as you are 10.01% down payment or more. So anywhere from 10.01 to 19.99 that would normally have mortgage insurance does not have mortgage insurance at all. So we've talked about it before. UWM is in and out of the market in terms of how competitive they are with their interest rates. They're never terrible, rarely the best. But a borrower with a 685 credit score and 10.01% down is looking at a fairly hefty mortgage insurance premium, at least 0.5% monthly. So in terms of that, it's going to be a significantly lower payment. So there's some tight restrictions on it. You can't use an appraisal waiver. So clearly they have one investor that's allowing them to do this that will buy these loans without mortgage insurance. But it looks like a great program. And for a lot of people that are in that 10 to 15% down and really hate the idea of mortgage insurance, UWM is a great lender to work with, very easy from the tech side. So it could be a really good option for a lot of borrowers who would otherwise have to pay mortgage insurance.
No, awesome. And we're going to talk about rates here in just a minute, just to kind of get things kind of moving in that direction. But, I always talk about inventory here to kind of start the show. I'd love to know what's happening in your market, right? A lot of you guys are spread across the United States, watching in different time zones, different markets. What's actually happening in your market now? Are you seeing more inventory? If you are, is it being met with the demand? Are you seeing price decreases? What are you seeing? I mean, because that's helpful for me as a real estate agent, someone that I do talk to agents across the country to try to have conversations so that I can, when I am making videos and I'm primarily talking about my market, I also want to be able to, have a conversation about other markets as well, because not, everyone that watches me isn't just in Southern California. So what are you seeing in your markets would be helpful. Here locally, let's just talk about the last couple of transactions I've put in. The inventory as a whole, we're today, before I got on the show, Orange County market, 3.3 million people, single families, condos, townhomes, 1,617 properties. So last week, I think we were at 1740 something, 17, somewhere in that ballpark. So would do the math, another 5% less than we were last week with regards to inventory. Here in Huntington, we're up a little bit. I think we came on at 121 properties. Last week, I think we were 114, 113, somewhere in that ballpark. So a little bit more property on the market, nothing really crazy. But here's the catch. Last couple offers I've put in 3 offers, in the last couple of days. One, well, let's just start to say that there's a lot of crappy agents out there. People that don't get back to you at all, don't tell you anything. You have to follow up. It's like no man's land. You put in an offer and then you have to figure out if they even where they are in the status. My clients are looking online and saying, "Hey, it shows pending. You haven't told me anything." Yeah, because I followed up with the agent. I've texted them. I've called them. I'm not getting any information, and yet it's showing pending. It's a crap show out there, if you will. So, yeah, but the last couple of properties I put in, one had 50 offers, one had 37 offers. One from a couple of days had 4 offers. So I've yet to still put in an offer on a property where I was the lone man, right? Where we were the only offer out there. And the last couple offers I put out, we've been getting beat and beat bad. It's I talk about it on the show in the past and even in videos. The hardest thing for us to do as real estate agents right now is really kind of give somebody an idea of where a price is. I mean, even Josh and I talk about properties that come on the market. We look at a property and we're like, dude, that's a crazy price for that property. And then 2 days later, it's pending. And so when I have a client that's interested in one of these, I tell clients all the time, I'm like, it looks to me that it's probably priced high, but it's probably going to sell. I mean, and so for an agent, that's a really difficult thing to say. It's like, is the value really there? I don't know, but somebody's going to pay it. So is it going to be you? Do you want it bad enough to pay that price? Because somebody's willing to do it. So it's kind of it's a balance, if you will. But Josh, what are we seeing with rates? What's happened in the last 2 weeks, right? Because we saw the Fed came out, right? The Fed said we're going to start tapering. Rates kind of trended back downward, right? Did what the market expected it to do. Then we kind of saw a little spike in rates. What have we seen now?
We had a strong CPI figure last week, and rates reacted negatively to that. The funny thing is, it should never be a surprise. It's pretty easy to reverse engineer that CPI calculation and know it's a 12-month aggregate of the monthly CPI figures. So when we say, hey, we're going to go back, we're going to say for the next report, November of 2021 falls off and November 20 falls off and it's replaced by November of 2021. Well, when we know that November of 20 was really low inflation and it's running a little hot right now, we know that number is going to spike. But regardless of, everyone should have been able to see it and know exactly what was coming last week, kind of shook the markets. So we are close to the worst levels of the year here. That being said, rates are still great. What it's done, it hasn't really put any brakes on the purchase market because rates are still really good. People are happy and somewhat worried that rates might go higher, so they're happy to get in. What it's done is it's really slowed down refinances. I don't know if you saw the numbers today, Jeb, but the weekly MBA application figures came out. Refinances were down 31% year over year, not week over week, but 31% down below where they were last year. So it's not surprising because we're having record volumes of refinances this time last year, and there's still a healthy number of refinances. But what we're seeing a lot more of is people that need cash out, just different situations. It's not just as simple as, hey, I've got 3.5, I'd love to get 2.875. It's really more need-based right now. But bigger picture, if you'd ask what my thoughts are on the rate market right now, very cautious and slightly bearish, meaning negative on interest rates in the short and intermediate term. A little bit longer term, going out towards the first of the year, middle of next year, still do believe that we're going to see better rates ahead. And the wild card there, or the thing that we have to look, or why short to intermediate term would be bearish for looking for worse interest rates, is as long as the markets are seeing these hot inflation figures and are concerned and don't really understand or know why it's there, and if it's likely to be long-term inflation, or if it's just an issue of we have constrained supply with supply chain issues and increased demand with a lot of stimulus into the economy in the first half of this year. That's more likely the cause of that, and it'll work out over time, 6 months, 12 months. As soon as the markets are convinced that inflation is not an issue, we're going to see rates drop down to a lower level. Without getting boring and wonkish in terms of economic details, if you look back at all of the academic research, it shows that heavy government borrowing, which we've had spectacularly heavy government borrowing, not just in the United States, but worldwide. It's deflationary over the long haul. Deflationary, it decreases economic growth, decreases interest rates. So definitely you got to keep an eye on everything in the short run. If you're looking at refinancing to reposition debt, pay off student loans, any number of things, it can still be a great idea to do it right now, because if I'm right, and we have better rates 6-12 months from now, you can always come back and redo that loan that's now no longer a cash out loan and would have a better interest rate. Even in a flat market, you can take the opportunity to redo that. So still seeing a lot of cash out activity and seeing buyers wanting to get into the market. Same stuff you were seeing. It's a slower market than it was, but it's by no means a slow market. All of our buyers are out there in a competitive bidding situation.
Yeah, no, I mean, and I realize that's frustrating for people watching some of my videos, in different markets, because what I'm seeing is what I'm talking about most of the time, right? I mean, sometimes I do a broader scope of the market, but a lot of what I see is what I talk about, and trying to help buyers understand that, that what you see as a headline might not actually be what the market's doing, because I'm still having the difficult conversations that I was having in the spring, maybe not to the same the same level, but I mean, I don't even know if I talked about this last week, but last week I put an offer in on an off-market property for $1,250,000. The property was listed at $1,200,000. It was off market, but they wanted $1,200,000. We offered $1,250,000. Ended up at $1,260,000. We got beat out at $1,275,000 on an off-market property. A property is not even actively showing. There's still multiple people looking at it, and we're talking $1 million price point here. I mean, it is still a frenzy, and it's difficult, right? It's difficult for buyers out there, and while inventory is low, demand is still there, even though rates have trickled up a little bit. So it's kind of the market that we're in for the time being. But it is what it is at the moment. But we're going to answer some of your questions and get into it. Continue to let me know what your markets are doing out there. Again, that stuff is helpful because it helps more people.
Jeb, before we jump into the question, one of the things that you said that got me thinking, we see in the comments and the questions here, every week it's a variation from someone in a different part of California or a different part of the country saying, what do you see in my area? When can I see prices soften? And you hear market softening, and that's way different than price softening. It just means there's less demand relative to what supply is available. Just a different way of saying exactly what you said, Jeb, because I just want people to know, before you ever get to prices softening, you have to get prices neutral, where they're flat. And we're not even close to seeing that. So it's sort of like, I don't even know what it is, what it would be. Maybe you're in high school and all of the cheerleaders have already got asked to prom, and you're waiting around saying, hey, which one's going to get dumped?
Bro, why are you talking about the past?
Which one's going to get dumped so I can get a date to prom? And it's like it's unlikely to happen. And even if it did, there's probably
bro, that hurts. That hurts.
I don't know how it works in Kinston. I don't know
how do you know about that?
There's only 3 cheerleaders, and you guys play like 7-man football, so I don't know how it works.
That's good. That's not true. Anyway, Jennifer Lego's in the house, helping us out here with a little commentary, kicking you guys out if you don't behave. I'm actually surprised to see 100 people on here, when we're an hour early. So anybody that's watching, appreciate you guys being here. We normally do this at 5, our live at 5 show. We usually go for 2 hours. The plan tonight is I'll be on here for at least 2 hours, depending on what happens to Josh over there. He may or may not be. But put your questions, regarding the market, regarding whatever. We'll answer them. We'll try to anyhow. But we do have a good question here, Josh. John Folks came in and said, what is a good way to estimate closing cost? And you could say California, you could say any state for that matter. We know some states are a little bit more with some of the costs, but in California for a home around 1.2 with 20% down. So should we take the down payment and the price into consideration when figuring out that estimate? Like, how do we estimate this sort of thing?
On a purchase, most of the costs are a function of the purchase price. Your lender's title policy. So the seller is going to buy an owner's title policy for you for the most part in California. Other parts of the country, other parts of California, it can be typical that it's split or the buyer pays their own. But the lender's title policy is the only thing that really is going to vary by your loan amount. So your escrow cost is going to be based off of the purchase price. Recording fees are relatively flat. So when you start getting to relatively high purchase prices, John was saying here in the comments here that he got priced out of an area that's 1.8, so he has to buy in a lower cost area of 1.2. We have other people in other parts of the country going, you people are nuts, talking about a lower cost area of 1.2. But at 1.2, it's a relatively high purchase price. And a lot of the costs don't go all the way up in a linear fashion. So for us on a 1.2 purchase with 20% down, put you just under $1 million on the loan amount, you're going to be looking at less than 1% in total closing costs, probably somewhere in the $7,000 to $8,000 range. And then on your prepaid items to pay any prorated taxes, first year's homeowners insurance, and the prepaid interest, you're probably looking at another 0.5% or so. If you're going to impound and you need to establish your impound account up front, that could be as high as 1%. So, John, without even running the numbers, my guesstimate would be if you and I were talking and we worked up an estimate for you, you're about 1.5% to 2% total in California. And our friends in New York and other high cost states are going to pipe up in the comments here and say, you people are nuts. It's 4 to 5 to 6% in terms of closing costs. But California, one of the paradoxes here that we're a high cost state for everything, but closing costs are pretty reasonable, largely due to the large amount of competition of escrow companies, title companies, lenders to choose from.
No, good stuff. I mean, I think that's helpful for a lot of people. Here's the deal. I got a counter offer on a property yesterday for a buyer here, actually from the channel, looking at buying a property in Orange County. He's in a $700,000 to $800,000 price point. And the property that we looked at, I think it was priced at like high sixes somewhere, 675, 680, somewhere in that ballpark. We made an offer at 765, based on comps. We thought it could appraise somewhere in that ballpark. The comps kind of ranged anywhere between like 725 and almost like 900,000. So 765 seemed like a reasonable offer based on the condition of the property, the location, similar floor plans that had sold, all that good stuff. We got a counterback yesterday. So I'm going to tell you how egregious some of this stuff is with regards to sellers and how it's some of the things we're seeing as agents. So start by saying, submit your highest and best offer, right? So they're coming back and saying, hey, listen, we have multiple offers, submit your highest and best, which in this market is pretty typical. I will tell you on the last couple of listings I've had, we haven't done that. We've taken the top offer and just countered some of the terms in it. So we're not doing the multiple counter deal. We're just talking to one. But in this case, there's a multiple counter going out to many people. They're asking for no appraisal. So they want the appraisal to be waived. They're saying that they won't do a termite inspection or any clearance. It's being removed from the contract. They're asking for the seller to remain in the property for 29 days after the close of escrow with zero cost. They're saying that the buyer shall purchase the property as is. Seller will not make any repairs, including the termite repairs, as we mentioned, so on and so forth. So essentially, you're buying a property as is, hoping that it appraises depending on where it comes in as a buyer. So the buyer, is asking me, what do you think? I think it's egregious. I think it's really hard for me as an agent to tell you should accept that. There's a lot of risk in that. Right. And me, trying to be a professional, right? I know he wants the property, but it's on you, man. I mean, there's a lot of risk involved with accepting a property like that. Now, we still have some contingencies in place that you can back out after the inspection and that sort of thing. But those things cost money, right? I mean, if in order to meet the timelines we put in that contract, he would have to pay for that appraisal as soon as we got it going, and he would have to pay for that home inspection. So he'd have, $700,000, $800,000, $900,000, $900 in cost if it didn't work out. So that's what we're looking at as agents, right? Now, some agents might just say, yeah, that's the market. That's what you have to do. And yeah, to some extent it is, but every transaction isn't like that. Every seller isn't going to respond like that. Every agent isn't going to tell their seller to respond like that, right? Rarely ever is it the seller coming back with those terms. Typically, it's the agent saying this is how we should do it. And I get it, but it just puts buyers in a very, very difficult position. And there will be some buyers out there that do it, and there will be, over the course of closings, a lot of buyers that get screwed because of that sort of thing. Because there will be issues, there will be things that come up. So it dawned on me, and I thought I would just bring that up.
Jeb,
Josh, yeah.
let me ask you this. So, is part of the reason why you wouldn't do that to me as a buyer, if I'm in that situation and they come back with a counter that basically says, "Hey, here's everything we want, and we don't care what you want." There's 5, 6, 7, 10 buyers getting that same counter back. In their best case, one of them says, "Okay, I'll take it. I'll take the beating that you're going to give me and give you everything you want." But wouldn't it be better for you and your seller to say, "Hey, we're going to do all of these things, but tell us what's the best that you're comfortable with." Give the buyer a feeling that they have some level of control over what they're doing versus coming back saying, "We're doing nothing, deal with it." So you're just creating an adversarial relationship where some of those people are going to drop out. The ones that do stick are not going to feel good about it, and you're going to have just an ugly adversarial transaction. So just from your perspective, why do you not approach that the same way when you're representing sellers? Why is that not the best thing for your seller to just take the leverage and club all of the buyers over the head with it?
I don't know. I feel like you can get better buyers, right? I mean, if you're taking the only one that's willing to work with you, then that to me, and it doesn't necessarily mean it's true, but that might be that might be the desperate buyer. That, I mean, who's to say that that buyer is the most qualified? I mean, at the end of the day, we're trying to get to the end, right? And I will tell you, like, coming out of a transaction that just fell out of escrow 2 times, going on it on the third time, you know, I was probably a little bit difficult to work with on the third time with offers coming in, because it was like, listen, here's the deal. This is what I've been through twice. My client, we have to close this because there's an up leg. We've messed around with people in the past that haven't done what they say they were going to do. And so I was very blunt up front, like, this is what it is. And it wasn't that, hey, you have to do this or you have to do that. It's just, this is what we've had in the past. This is ideally what we're looking for. And we ended up with 11 offers, and we had 2 really solid offers at the end of the day. And we chose one, and there was a lot of communication going on. And what I do typically when as a seller or as a listing agent, when we accept an offer, I email and I just started doing this. So this isn't something I've done my whole career, just recently because of how quick the market's moving. I email back everybody on that transaction or call them and tell them exactly what we accepted. This is what we accepted. Full transparency. We accepted it, this price, these contingencies, this many days in escrow. And the reason I do that is because I want to see that sort of thing coming back to me to help my clients in making offers, right? It's, the transparency is there. You're either willing to do it or you're not. And it's okay if you're not. There's no pressure to do it. But when a buyer asks you, well, what should I do? Well, I can say, hey, listen, the last one you missed out on, this is how we lost it. These are the things that a lot of other agents are doing. You guys even saw that. If you saw that video I did, last week, where I compared some of the offers on another listing I had and put them all side by side. And I said, hey, this is what people did. Half of them waived the appraisal contingency, half didn't. Half shortened the contingency periods, half didn't, and went through it. I do that to give you guys a better idea of what people out there in the market are doing. And it doesn't mean you have to be in Southern California to be able to take that and use it. Just, I feel like it's helpful stuff. It's even helpful for me as a real estate agent. I know what I'm doing, but I don't know what buyers are willing to do. And so when I see, hey, this is what a pool of buyers is willing to do, it's like, okay, that means the market is still pretty aggressive from a seller standpoint. And so it's helpful in writing those offers.
Jeb,
So I don't know if I even answered your question there, Josh, but at the end of the day, I want to get as many people that's willing to work with terms instead of just trying to build a wall and say, the only one, if you can get over it, I'm willing to work with you. No, let's try to get a pool of people and be able to pick from the pool, right? The more people I have willing to do somewhere close to what we're looking for, maybe it's not perfect, that gives the seller more options, and it may give us a better opportunity to find a better transaction, if you will.
That new tactic there that you're using of the transparency of letting the agents know, here's what you lost out to. Obviously, huge benefits in building relationships with those realtors who you're likely to have to work with going forward. But like the one that you had in Santa Ana that fell out twice, isn't that really helpful when property comes back on the market? Now all those agents know, hey, my client still hasn't found a house. They're still interested in that property. That guy was cool, gave me the information, and I know where we need to be. I know where they were at prior and what we would have to do to get that property.
And keep in mind, guys, every time we fell out of escrow, we got more money the next time. Every time, right? So it's fallen out twice. Each time we've gotten a higher price. So
And that's a question, Jeb. What do we get every other week? Someone says, "Yeah, I'm seeing this house. It's come back on the market." It goes pending, comes back on the market. How much lower can I make an offer on it? It's a common thought that people are asking you, "Hey, how much lower can I offer because something comes back on the market?" And I can tell you, there's a house that you and I looked at a month ago. I just saw it yesterday. It came back on the market. I'm like, "Why is this house back on the market?" Well, it was tied up in escrow for 27 days before it fell out. It's going to sell for as much or more as it sold for last time. It just had a buyer that, for whatever reason, drug it out and didn't work.
no, agreed. Yeah, it's hard to say, right? I mean, some properties come back on the market might be reduced in price, and this is a very aggressive price point. And so things tend to get heated, and there's more buyers that meet that pool of purchase price, right? I mean, you're going to have the lesser the purchase price, the more people you're going to have to be able to qualify for that. So, but at the end of the day, it's all about getting to the finish line. It doesn't matter what price you get on paper unless you can actually get there. And at the moment, we haven't gotten there. So, and we are lagging in questions, guys, but we don't really have a lot at the moment, but we're going to get to them here. So,
Jeb, let me
yep.
piggyback and just kind of continue on one thing that you said. I have a client right now. We're going to close tomorrow, $1 million price point in the Inland Empire. So it's a relatively high price point. They're getting a nice, newer, big home. And they were getting beat out, offer after offer after offer. And he's telling me, hey, we're getting these crazy counter offers. This listing agent's nuts. She's just leveraging us. I said, okay, well, let me talk to her. Let me see. I had a decent conversation with her up front. She had a very aggressive counter offer back, not to the degree of what you were talking about, but very tight timelines on appraisal, loan approval, inspection, everything super tight. So sure enough, at 10 days, we have the loan approval, but it's a conditional loan approval. I told the borrower, hey, I have no problems with releasing the contingencies. We're going to meet these conditions. We did not have the appraisal back. It was due back on the 10th day. It didn't come back till like the 11th or the 12th day. I was actually driving up here to Washington for my surgery. I had my second conversation with the listing agent. And it turns out she was really sharp, doing a really good job of representing her sellers. And it had also fallen out at like the 28th day of a 30-day escrow already. And she needed to protect her commission because if it fell out again, she probably wasn't going to get to close that deal, her reputation, her relationship with those people. Right. So a lot of times it's important to figure out the context. It's not just a turd of an agent being difficult to you. It's, again, their job is to protect their sellers. And she was pretty reasonable. We asked for a 3-day extension on removing the loan contingency, and she told us to go pound sand. And our buyer made the smart decision to go ahead and remove the contingency. And we're closing, 2 days early tomorrow, and it worked out well for everyone. But I thought it was helpful in the context of this to understand that when you get some of these crazy counter offers or you get aggressive listing agents, have your agent dig and find out what's happened, what's been going on there.
And I promise, guys, we'll move on from this in 1 second. So that made me think of something. So I mentioned my client's on an up leg, right? So she's buying a bigger property. She has to sell her property. So her purchase is contingent on her property closing. And as I mentioned a moment ago, it's fallen out twice. What is really cool is the fact that me and the agent on the up leg property she's buying has been full transparency. The day it fell out, I called the other agent on the other side and I said, hey, here's the deal. We fell out of escrow. I have backup offers. I have multiple offers on the property. I know we can go back into escrow, but we're going to need a little bit more time. She asked some questions, talked to her seller. Her seller said, yeah, you know what? It's good. We've already done all of our contingencies. Essentially, all contingencies are released except for the closing of our property. And my client really wants this property. Agent was super cool. Guess what? Fell out twice. So I had to call the agent again. And this was after about another week, right? This time there were no inspections done. The client just changed their mind because the cost of remodeling had gone up. They didn't realize how much it had gone up. They weren't in a position to do it. That was no longer the property for them. Had to call her up again and say, hey, listen, we fell out of escrow again. I know we'll get another offer, but I need to work your seller to work with us. I know he's going to be renting something, because she told me he's going to be renting something. He's moving out, blah, blah, blah. And I said, here's the deal. I'll pay for his rent. I'll personally pay for his rent for the month of December, however long it costs to extend it, out of my pocket. And I told my client, I said, here's the deal. They're going to work with us, but we're going to be paying, or I'm going to be paying the rent or what have you. And it all, what happened was it ended up working out. We ended up getting an escrow for 21 days instead of the original 30 that we had signed on the last contract. So we're actually closing a day earlier than we would have on the second transaction. And there's no timelines needed to be extended past that first timeline. So it was all transparency, all communication. So not all agents out there are bad people. This agent was fully transparent, fully committed, great communication, great conversation, but it takes that on both sides. What I often see is agents on the other side try to hide it, try to make it, hide a deal, put together, we have delays, we have all this stuff, without just coming out and saying what it is. Like, what's the problem? Resolving the problem, finding the solution, and then, figuring out what the end game is. And that in this case was helpful. So just thought I'd throw it out there that, something goes sideways. It's not just in real estate, just in life. Just have a conversation. It's you can probably work past it. Anyway,
bad news never gets better with age. So deliver it fast and start communicating as well as you can.
No one likes to get bad news, and no one likes to give it. But I can tell you, there's a sense of relief on the person that's going to give it side once it's off, once it's out there. Doesn't make it any better, but I can tell you the anxiety, the anxiousness, everything that's associated with that is a hell of a lot better feeling once it's gone. Even if it's bad news, it's better to hit it. So let's go. You see anything there, Josh? We got a lot of people.
Here's a quick, easy one. We always get a version of this every couple of weeks. Johnny Coe says, is it better to lock the rate 6 to 8 months out, or just buy down rate once home closes in 6 to 8 months? Thanks. Obviously, most likely we're talking about new construction here. You wouldn't have a 6 to 8 month escrow on existing construction. Locks are available for those time frames, 180, 240 days. They're really expensive. So unless you are convinced that rates are going to the moon, I'd get within 60 days and take a look at it. You not only pay a higher rate, pay more in points and fees. If you want the rate lower, you'll generally pay an upfront fee to lock that will be included towards your costs. You're not paying an additional fee, but you're paying it upfront just in case the deal goes sideways, that the lender can cover the cost of their hedge.
Nope, absolutely good stuff. I saw one here just a minute ago. I was going to click on. Joel is saying, I'm not going to even try to go with the last name there, even though it just could be fun.
Shanehoffen.
What is it?
Shanehoffen.
Shane?
Shanehoffen.
I was going to go with like Schoenhofen.
I'm not. I'm ancestrally German. I believe it starts Shanehoffen.
All right. Hey, man. Hoffen means he likes beer. That's all I know. Joel was the biggest story. Oh, Joel. Jesus. Zillow was the biggest story, then disappeared. What's up? I think it's definitely a story out there. But I don't think it's what it originally came out to be, right? What we found out is that they're going to be selling 7,000 or so homes. A lot of people thought those homes were just going to come to the market. What we've since realized is that they're selling them in bulk. In fact, they sold 2,000 of them, last week, to one particular investor who has come out and said that they plan to rent those properties out. So again, doesn't mean more inventory coming to the market. Just means Zillow is selling those properties at a discount. That's going to hurt Zillow's bottom line, but we already know what's going on there. Josh and I talked about this, last week. It's not the story that everybody wants to believe that it is. I don't think Zillow is sitting here, selling these properties because they foresee a crash in the market. That's not why I think they're doing it. I think they literally just got in way above their heads with regards to the amount of properties they had purchased, and realized they did not have the manpower to try to rehab some of these and sell them. Many of them they had purchased probably over market value, didn't have the wherewithal or the means to hold on to these properties and rent them out or do anything with them. I mean, it's, start talking, one company owning 9, 10, 11,000 properties. It's a big deal. So I don't think that it's any more than it is. Kind of taking it at face value and saying, hey, listen, they're going to sell them, likely going to be purchased in bulk by someone else. It's not really going to affect the dynamic of the market unless you were planning on selling your property to them. Then in that case, it might affect you. But if you're a buyer, I mean, is it going to give you, more opportunity? Maybe if you were in a market where they were heavily concentrated, but even then, it's like, the stats come out once a month with regards to the number of purchases being investor based, and it's been over the last 2 years or so, somewhere around that 21, 22% of the purchases in the market are investor based. It hasn't really changed, shifted in either direction. And that counts these big companies doing it. So is that going to change? Hard to say. There's a lot of people out there trying to buy property. If there's any value in it, if there's any distress in it, if a flipper can make money, trust me, there's going to be investor money out there. Any thoughts on Zillow there, Josh? You want to add into it?
I saw in my Google feed 3 articles from around the country, all trying to spin this as a great thing for buyers. One was Salt Lake, one was Denver, and I think the other one was Orlando. And they all had a version of the quote of this: it's going to be hundreds of homes coming on the local market due to Zillow exiting iBuying. So again, the local writer, most of these journalists are fresh out of journalism school. They don't know much. They make some phone calls. They ask a few questions. They write up an angle and spit it out to you. So it ignores the fact that, like Jeb said, most of these already have been or will be sold in bulk to groups. They're not going to come on the market. And just what was the number you let off with, Jeb, here in our local market? How many homes on the market right now?
1,617.
Okay, so 200. If we threw 200 of them on the market, does that magically throw it into a buyer's market or even a neutral market?
Bro, you throw 2,000 homes on the market, it doesn't turn into a buyer's market.
Yeah, so it's silliness. Anyone that knows numbers and understands the market knows that the 7,000 homes that they have what's the in Blade
I think
Runner? Well, I was just going to say, in Blade Runner, where he gives the wonderful speech at the end, and he says it's like a teardrop in the rain. It just gets lost. These 7,000 houses are like a teardrop in the rain. No one's even going to know they're there.
No, agreed. Yeah, agreed. Oh boy, Willing's back. Your boy Willing was on fire last week, Josh. I'm gonna have to go. Boy, it might just be a real. It might be a female. Might be a female.
You saying bad things? That's misogynist. Why they were on fire, so they had to be a female?
No, I said it. I said it was a male, but I said it could have been a female.
Oh, okay, good. I just wanted to make sure you weren't getting in trouble.
No, not this, not yet. Here we go. Eric Nichols. If you refi your house where the equity is more than you owe, can you use the equity to just pay off the loan amount?
So it's crazy. It's sort of a difficult question to comprehend. But let's just say, use an example. If Eric's saying, "Hey, my home is worth $500,000 and I owe $200,000, so I got $300,000 of equity. Can I use my equity to pay off the mortgage?" Yes, that's exactly what you're going to do. But you don't have that equity. It's not liquid cash in your pocket or in your bank account or in your Coinbase wallet. You literally have to have that money. So you're going to go borrow it from a new lender. So you borrow $200,000 from the new lender and they pay off the old loan. So you didn't end up with no loan on your property where it's free and clear. You just ended up with a new $200,000 loan to a new lender. So hopefully that makes sense. But that is exactly how a refinance works. But it doesn't mean that you end up with the home free and clear because you had to get the liquid cash from your equity.
There you go.
Let's throw this one up here, Jeb, because this is it's one that doesn't have a good answer. So Miss Shadow Llama says, what is a good way to estimate PMI? There's not a good way. And what I will get is people all of the time, we give them very accurate dead on estimates. And I get a version of this. Redfin says the MI is way higher than what you have. Well, I ran the numbers at Zillow and the MI is way higher. I mean, where are you getting these numbers? Well, They use a random wild ass guess in their system, and I go into a proprietary system and put it in. It shops it with about 7 different mortgage insurance providers, just like we do with lenders on the broker side. And we're going to figure out who has the lowest cost of mortgage insurance for you and put it in. Now, the problem with that, most of those 7 companies, we have one pricing engine where we can run it through and get that back. Most of those mortgage insurance companies you could go to the website, plug in the information, and it would get you a quote. So you'd have to go to all 7 of them, but you could access that. Most of them now have it behind, it's not a paywall, but it's a locked access where you have to show that you're a mortgage professional to get access to it. So probably don't like this answer, but connect with a mortgage professional that can run those numbers for you and isn't just using a random estimate. So I don't get offended when someone asks me, show me where you're getting these numbers from. We'll give them a printout. It'll show the name of the mortgage insurer. It'll show all of the terms and validate that that's accurate, because unfortunately, if you call up 10 loan officers, 8 of them will just do the same thing that Redfin and Zillow are and just pull a number out of the air that's kind of in the ballpark and shoot it out to you, and it'll usually be high. For most well-qualified borrowers, meaning credit scores in the 700s, mortgage insurance is cheaper than what you would ever estimate, especially if you have multiple borrowers on the transaction and it's a single-family residence. So just get with a mortgage professional and have them do it for you, because there is no easy or simple way for you to get accurate figures online.
No, good stuff. Good stuff. Here's a question from Krasimir. Krasimir. What is a PUD? My title came back and the underwriter asked for HOA statement saying it's a PUD. There is no HOA. So PUD, the acronym is planned unit development. So it is a community that was a planned development. Typically a builder goes in and creates these, plans that get approved and they're built, right? Typically what happens, the PUDs are different than condos in the fact that you actually own the land underneath those properties. A lot of times these properties can have adjoining walls. They might be attached. In some cases, they're not. They're freestanding single family homes. Many of them have associations. Typically here in California, if it's a PUD or a planned unit development, typically there is some sort of homeowners association, associated with that community, because that's how they take care of the community. Josh, are I don't know, are all PUDs not in HOAs?
It would be very, very rare for them to not have it, because, as you said, that whole planned unit development, they generally look like single family residences, but they're in a common interest development where even if it's just, like medians with nice flowers
Streets
and
or
stuff
whatever.
like that, they're still, it may not be a pool and a clubhouse like a condo has. So oftentimes with the PUDs, we'll see much lower HOA dues, but it would be very, very rare to see one with no HOA. Otherwise, why wouldn't they just be legally zoned to single family residence? I guess I could see a situation where possibly a builder was limited by zoning laws for single families of their density, and they could get around it with a PUD and didn't have an HOA. But again, I just don't see the purpose of that.
Yeah, same here. I mean, I'm in a community that's considered a PUD, and we have an HOA. And I in seeing and selling a lot of property, I come across them all the time, and typically they're associations. So if you have one that's not an HOA, I'm hard to say, but somebody should be able to help you out there. Either title or somebody should be able to get you something, CCNR, anything that shows you what's happening. And that prelim should come back and tell you exactly what's going on with that property. Unfortunately, without that, not really a lot we can tell you there.
Jeb, it's early in the show, but we have 2 contenders for comments of the day. They're not questions; they're just good comments here. So, John Isola comes in regarding the low closing costs in California. Says low closing costs, but $6 a gallon gas. So, highly accurate. Unfortunately,
Yep. Go ahead and go with your other comment there.
And then the follow-up here is Pixel Porsche says, won't do a termite inspection equals has termites. LOL. Yes, that is generally correct.
No, for sure. And one question I was going to ask you a minute ago, hey, you guys watching right now, where's gas prices where you are? List where you are. Tell me the gas price. Here in California, yesterday, I paid $5.25 for 87 unleaded. Basic stuff. 87, $5.25. My car is a 26 gallon or so. It cut me off at at 100. What did it cut me off? $110. I think it cut me off. No, cut me off at 120. And I think I was at 23 gallons or something at the time. I mean, I was pretty empty, but it was crazy. It's stupid prices. I have no idea. No, I'm sorry. It was coming off at 110. That's what it was. And I still needed like 3 gallons in there. So it was going to be like 125 by the time I was done. And so, dude, it's crazy. Fortunately, I have an electric car on order. Don't know when it's coming in. Might be a year, might be 6 months, might be 2 years. Unsure, but we'll see.
Are your stock options going to pay for the vehicle before it gets here?
I hope
it's been on fire. What's going on?
I really hope that it pays for it. So we'll see. I told Nikki, wouldn't that be awesome if the stock that I own just actually ends up paying for the car itself?
Yeah.
But anyway, that's a whole different conversation. So, one of my mentors, Brian Buffini, real estate guy here in Southern California, real estate trainer, been in the business, around the business for 30 plus years, posted a picture a couple days ago, and he does a bold predictions, a couple times a year. It basically gives his forecast on the market. And he's been pretty accurate for, the last 15 years or so with regards to the data and all that good stuff. And maybe even longer than that. And he's doing one in a week or two. And he posted a picture on his one of the socials out there, and basically said that it showed the price of gas. And he said that he was going to, basically, part of his bold predictions is going to tell you why the price of gas in California is going to affect housing. And interested to see how the two are correlated. If it is going to affect people's purchasing power because they're spending so much money on gas, or people are going to leave California because of the price of gas, or interested. But we'll see how it plays out, and obviously we'll give you that update. But
Jeb, let me tell you a little story about my trip up here. So we drove up the 15 through Idaho, and we're about 10 miles outside of the little town where the crazy lady and her doomsday author husband killed their kids and stuff. So
yes.
just give you some context of what part of the country we're in. And my 38-gallon tank has about 1 gallon left in it. And you know how when you're driving on an interstate, every one has the big digital board that tells you how much the gas is. So I look up, it says, the next one says $3.29. I said, I'm down, I'm pulling in. So I go in and I look and I go, what in God's name is this? They have 85 octane gas. I didn't know that it was just water. You can't put that in your gas tank. So I go, obviously it's going to be $3.39 for my 87 or whatever. I'm still good with that. It's way cheaper than California. I put that in, I go in, use the restroom, grab a Pepsi. I come back and I'm like, why does that say 200 and something dollars? These assholes trick you by saying the 85 octane is $3.29. It was $4.79 a gallon to get 87 octane gas. I almost firebombed the gas station before I left.
Oh, it's too good. There's a gas station here in Huntington Beach. It's at the corner of Adams and Beach Boulevard. For anyone that's watching this, so the context there. Across the street, there's a gas station it's an Arco. Everybody says the gas is garbage, whatever. Call it what you want. That's what I put in my car. I don't care. It's going to be somebody else's problem someday. Anyway, the gas, just let's say it's $4.79 at that Arco. Across the street, caddy corner, literally, they'll display a sign that says $4.89. And you're like, oh, not bad. But then above it, it's like cash price. Credit price, it's like $7. It's like a full dollar and something more. I'm like, who in the hell would, when you could just literally, you could push your car if it ran out of gas up to the other thing to pay less gas, or just put a gallon in it and go across the street. But it's so nuts that, the credit versus cash price for one, but the fact that their competition's across the street, busy all day long, is just having people pull in, pull out. This place is wide open because nobody wants to pay the price. Anyway, we're off on a tangent here, guys. Sorry. Let's see what we got. See anything there, Josh? Get a lot of comments. While we're looking here, one thing I will say, like I tell clients all the time, if you're making an offer on a property in this environment, you need to come in with your highest and best offer. You can't expect a counter. You can't expect in this market to get a counter. As I mentioned a moment ago, the last couple of offers that I've been the listing agent on and offers have come in, I've basically said, hey, listen, submit your highest and best offer. We're not going to counter. We're going to go with the highest. My client's not looking to necessarily get way more money. They just want a solid transaction and what have you. And so while we've been on the call here, I had an agent finally get back to me on one of the offers that we wrote. We didn't get it. The property was priced at what, around 800. We made an offer at 841, I believe, 20% down, solid client. The agent got back to me and said we didn't get it. And so I responded and said, can you give me any idea so I can let my client know kind of what I talked about earlier? They accepted an offer at 850. What did I say? 850? 850 with 400,000 down. So my client was 20% down, which was 160 something thousand or 170,000. But solid deal. 841. I sent him the message saying, hey, listen, unfortunately we didn't get it. This is what they accepted. And his response to me was he would have offered more. He goes, I would have put in an offer for 856. Okay. And now he didn't have the $400,000 down, but the fact that, comes back and says, hey, I would have offered this, it's those conversations up front saying, hey, listen, you might not get a counter. And I understand that buyers don't want to throw their best foot out there. They don't want to throw their best price out there because what if it gets accepted? I tell people all the time, there's two things that buyers think. If your offer gets accepted and it got accepted without having to go through the process, you think, could I have paid less? Right? If he would have gotten it, if he had offered 856 and it got accepted, he would have thought, could I have gotten it for less? And that would have bothered him. And then the other side of it is you find out it sells just above or just below what you were willing to offer. And you think, I would have offered that. I would have offered more. And so as a buyer, you've got to figure out, the direction, the line that you stand on. In this market, you can't expect to get that counter offer. And that's where escalation clauses can be of help. Saying, hey, listen, I'm willing to put that offer in at 841, as I mentioned, but I'm willing to go up to 856 if an offer comes in above my 841. I'm willing to offer $1,000 more than that up to 856. So maybe you get to 856, or maybe in this case, you get to 851 and they accept it. Right. But he didn't want to use the escalation clause. We talked about it. He didn't want to use it. And in this case, we didn't get the property, and we might not have gotten it either way because of that, the down payment difference. But at the end of the day, that's the sort of stuff that you got to keep in mind in this market. It's small things right there can be the difference in getting an offer accepted and not. So.
And Jeb, we
Yep.
may be talking about the same client here, but you have a buyer that you referred to me, and I can say, other than someone with a monstrous down payment, it's the most well-qualified borrower we've had in all of 2021. Fantastic credit, fantastic debt to income ratio, fantastic down, fantastic reserves. And sometimes we get those buyers that they think that will trump the market, that being the most solidly qualified borrower is going to allow you to go in and get a deal on a property. And we talked about this before. From the seller's perspective, if they're being advised well by their listing agent, they realize that the worst borrower with a closed loan still gets you more money than the best borrower with a lower offer. So there's always that trade-off and balance, like Jeb was talking. You want to make sure that you get to the finish line with as little stress and headaches as possible. That's most likely with the more qualified borrower. But for this gentleman and his wife, I've talked to multiple listing agents. We go through it and they go, hey, that's awesome. I'm so glad that you followed up, because that does reinforce what the pre-approval package says. He does look great on paper. Unfortunately, we've got multiple offers that are much stronger than that. So there's just no overcoming it.
No, agreed. And it's tough. It's tough for buyers. It's tough for him, right? He's getting beat out, and it's sometimes it's not as easy as, I don't want to say overthinking it, but some people, you try to give advice and they want to approach it a different direction, and that's okay. It's just, you have to understand that, I'm your agent. I'm hired for a reason. This is the advice I'm giving. This is what I think we should do based on the environment we're in. And if you don't want to do it, that's okay. But at some point, we're either going to continue to do this forever, or you're going to get burnt out on the situation. So just, it's sort of a fine line, but it's good to know what you're working with in this environment. Guys, we're almost an hour in at the moment. Ask a favor if you're watching, hit the thumbs up. I know we got a little comment there on the screen. Get that off the screen there. Hit the thumbs up, share it, like it, post it, do whatever you do with it. Hit the thumbs down. I heard now the thumbs down, it doesn't count them anymore. Maybe I see a one thumbs down. Does everybody see a one beside it, or do I just see the one? So somebody gave me a thumbs down. It just shows a one beside it. You see a one, Josh, or do you see just a thumbs down?
I don't in the StreamYard interface here. I'm not seeing it at all.
I got you. Anyway, so you can hit a thumbs down too. I don't care. It's all good.
It's gonna be that tear in a rainstorm here in a moment as YouTube wipes it clear.
I'm not gonna sleep tonight because of it, guys. So, I'm gonna read Willing's comments just because they're fun to read. Sushi is fresh. Werewolf is in a hat, and Luis doesn't have blonde, beautiful hair this week. You were Jennifer Beeston last week.
Oh.
I would like to give a flex report this evening within the pipeline. Another appraiser is flexing, wants a quick release, window release because it's a safety issue. I agree. More critical is my branches flexing, and I believe they sabotaged my letter that I asked them to mail. Christmas card. It's been, oh my goodness, what is going on here, Willing? You're gone off on a tangent. You've lost it. We're not going to go down that rabbit hole at the moment. Let's see here. We've got same question as John, but in Texas. What are the estimated closing costs for a 360 home in Dallas through FHA? So you've addressed the question. Any difference on FHA versus a conventional loan for closing costs, Josh? I mean, let's just ask that.
No, they're really, you're going to pay for the same things. You're going to pay for an appraisal. You're going to need a credit report. You're going to have escrow or settlement fee, depending on where you're at, who's doing that, an attorney, a title company, or an escrow company like we use in California. You're going to have your title insurance. You're going to have recording fees. Some areas have transfer taxes. That's the weird stuff. In some places, there's taxes that buyers pay that we don't deal with in California. So to my experience and understanding the numbers that I've seen from viewers like you guys in Texas, a little bit higher, but not tremendously higher. I would think 2% would be a safe number, 1% for closing costs and another 1% for your prepaids. They can be a little bit higher in Texas because you only pay your taxes once a year. But again, the best advice, get with a trusted professional. Jeb and I have a big network of people we can connect you with, really good people in Texas that can help you. And we're working on Texas, so hopefully first quarter of next year we're able to help you out there. But for right now, get with someone that knows the area and knows how to calculate that stuff dead on.
All right, here's a good question, Josh. If I buy a home as an owner occupant, but have an opportunity to buy my parents' home in the next few months, can I move into my parents' home and rent the other one?
So the giant question I have here, do we need to finance your parents' home? So if you buy your parents' home and you buy another home, the problem that you're going to run into is trying to do both of them owner occupied. Obviously, you want the best financing on both of them, but if you're getting a loan, all loans are registered in something called MERS, the Mortgage Electronic Registration Service, and that will pop up to any lender. So whichever loan you get first, the second lender is going to come back and go, cool, you just bought this other house 6 weeks ago, 8 weeks ago, owner occupied. So there's absolutely nothing preventing you from doing another home as a rental, but you're going to have to do non-owner occupied financing with that unless you wait some type of time frame between closing on the two.
So answer me this, Josh. I buy a house. I buy your house, right? And then find out that my parents want to sell me their house. That's my dream house. I've always wanted my parents' house, for example. I don't, but for this conversation.
Going back to Kinston? You're leaving
Huntington,
heading back to
North Carolina, baby. In that case, and what happens in that case? Can I not write a letter of explanation explaining, hey, look, this is the situation, and get somebody to bite on that? Or is the fact that I did that first one owner occ going to ruin that for me?
No, there's always ways to explain. The trouble or the biggest issue that we would have to arm wrestle an underwriter on was you didn't know a month ago or 2 months ago that your parents were going to sell that house. They really just woke up one day and said, hey, Jeb, you can finally buy our house. Now, let's say, heaven forbid, your parents pass away in a car accident and the other two siblings don't, that's not their dream house and you want it. That's pretty easy to explain. Hey, this home wasn't available 3 months ago. My parents lived in it. Unfortunately, they died in a tragic accident, and we're trying to figure out within our family how to keep the property in the family. That would make all the sense in the world, and we could get an underwriter to buy off on that. So it's a horrible example. I don't know why that one came to mind, but it's just something that makes sense as to why you did not know this home that was your ultimate home was not going to be available.
No, good stuff. Celeste is saying, what's a good as is selling price for an as is fixer home in a 1.2 to 1.3.25 track in OC? So need more information, more context on that. If you want to message me, I'm happy to have that conversation with you and give you an idea. I don't know if you're an agent or somebody selling. In this environment, I mean, for example, I meet with a seller in this market and they say, what do I need to do to the house? Nothing. Nothing. No, not always true, right? I mean, right now we're painting, we're doing some landscaping, that sort of thing. But typically, like, you would go through a house and maybe check some boxes, do some things in this market. If most of it is done and it's pretty, let's say, ordinary for the property, pretty typical of what's selling in that market. Maybe it's not highly upgraded, but it's clean, it's turnkey, all that stuff. Not really having to do a lot just because of the demand out there. Now, as things shift and the market shifts, that might change. But fixers, everybody wants a fixer. Here's an example. Client of mine, property in Dana Point, came on the market on an 11,000 square foot lot, listed at $850,000. Good location, south of the freeway, closer on the beach side. And my client emailed me and said, hey, we'd like to put an offer on this property. And first thing I said was, this is your purchase price. This is what you're approved at, more or less. It's going to sell for considerably more because of the condition and the potential and all of that good stuff. Well, we're willing to pay more. Okay, how are we going to do that? My boyfriend's parents have money. They're willing to give it to us and help us out and give us cash and all this good stuff. Okay, that's great. By the time we called back, I think like a day later on that one, there was 20 something offers. At the end of the day, I think they had like 60 something offers on this property. And so that's a fixer, and it was priced below market in this environment. And people want those properties because of the potential to do certain things and what have you. And a lot of times those fixers, even though they need work, they end up selling pretty close, depending on how bad it is, pretty close to what the market would bear for a property that didn't need all the work, just because of the demand, right? That demand ends up driving that price up. So that strategy on pricing one of those is kind of critical to start, because you can really get the demand going and end up somewhere, probably close to what fair market value would be on something that didn't need to be fixed up in many cases. So again, you can put more information in here. Happy to have the conversation, or you can just message me, and I'm happy to have it that way as well.
Hey Jeb, we've got a comment for you to comment on. Ken Evans is giving us some information here. It's no longer a seller's market. That changed about a month and a half ago.
Okay, well, I don't have a comment that would be very nice.
The comment is, Ken, I don't know what you're looking at or where you're reading it. I doubt that you're a professional in the market. We've talked about this throughout the state of California. Any locale in California, none of our clients are not in a competitive bidding situation. That is the definition of a seller's market. Seller gets to pick from multiple offers, and you get to compete by offering better terms, increased price. So cool. You may not be in California. Say it's not California. Jeb mentions the Cromford report that talks about Arizona. We talk about bidding wars throughout Texas. We both have big networks of mortgage and real estate professionals throughout the country. There is nowhere in the country where I talk to anyone that say, this is awesome that we're no longer in a seller's market and my buyers can walk in and just write their offer and get them accepted. It's just not happening. Now,
yeah, understand what a seller's market is. A seller's market is one where the seller really dictates how the transaction goes. They can pick the title company. They can pick the escrow company. They get to pick the service providers. They get to do whatever they want because they have the leverage in that market. I haven't seen that market in a very, very long time, since probably 2009, 2000, maybe 2010, where somebody thought that they could come in and actually pick those things. And because you were so desperate to get an offer, that you actually allowed the buyer to do some of these things and pick It's not happening. I mean, we're not. You might be in a market where it's softened, as we talked earlier. A softening market isn't a buyer's market by any means. It just means
Not even a
there's
neutral market.
no. And it's okay, right? It doesn't have to be. We're not saying every market out there is like Southern California, because I know it's not. But at the same time, it's a seller's market is when you have that 6 months or so of inventory on the market. Homes are sitting 90 plus days on the market. Tell me where you're seeing that, right? What home's sitting on the market more than 90 days that's priced correctly? None. Now, you could go off and say, well, it's manufactured or it's whatever, and completely different. That's a different scenario in itself. So, yeah, I'd love to hear it. Let's have the conversation. Put your market. I'll look up the data. I'll gladly admit if I'm wrong. But I don't think that I am. So anyway,
Another good one here, Jeb. We don't get this question very often.
yep.
Purwall says, "Can you please talk about how a reverse mortgage works? My house is almost paid off, and would the interest rate differ?" There are few things that are more misunderstood than reverse mortgages. Starting with part of the question here, Suk is saying his house is almost paid off. Their house is almost paid off, so they would consider a reverse mortgage. Your house doesn't have to be paid off. It just has to have sufficient equity to qualify for the reverse mortgage. It's great if it is paid off, but a reverse mortgage is simply a loan that grows because you're not making any payments. Everyone remembers, 15 years ago when we had option arms where you could make a payment that was less than amortizing, so your loan balance would grow every month. This is like a super option arm. You have the option of making no payment, and all of the interest every month just gets tacked on to your loan balance. So your question here is, how would the interest rate differ? The interest rate is going to be higher because it's going to be a variable interest rate. So that variable interest rate is there because you're actually borrowing more money in the future. A lender's not going to say, hey, I'm going to give you today's 3% fixed rate, not knowing when you're adding this interest onto your loan and growing the loan, what rates might be in the future. We see a lot of the same problems with reverse mortgages that we saw with option arms because the client isn't looking at it the same way. I'm saying, how much do I pay every month? What is my interest rate? It's really just a margin and these other things. I've seen people get abused more egregiously on reverse mortgages than any other type of loan product. My wife, one of her best friends, her mother-in-law, comes to me about a year and a half ago, and they said, can you look at this? We don't think this is right. Her interest rate, when rates are really low, she's at 7% interest rate. She said, no, that can't be that my rate's too high. My friend did the loan for me. Well, your friend, you have a friend that does reverse mortgage? Yeah, I saw him on Fox News, and they had the reverse mortgage commercial, and he came over to my house, and he talked to me, and he helped me with this. We went back through it. It was a $500-something thousand loan. The person made like $80,000 on her mortgage. So reverse mortgages are more difficult, more time consuming, a longer sales cycle. So they are more expensive, but there's no world in which any mortgage should require someone paying $80,000 for the loan. So it's important that you shop. It's important that you get educated and look. There are a lot of good vendors for reverse mortgages. You should be able to get one with a pretty low margin and a low interest rate. And this all, like the thing, this wasn't specific in your question, but I would always like to answer. More and more people older folks are getting reverse mortgages. So when they pass and the home is inherited, people are like, oh, well, she doesn't own the home. Our grandma doesn't own the home. There was a reverse mortgage on it. Grandma absolutely still owns the home. Right. There's just a mortgage and a mortgage balance on it. And it's due upon death. You can't have that growing negatively amortizing loan forever. So if you guys want to keep that property, you have to pay it off. And there's even some interesting terms in the reverse mortgages. 90% of reverse mortgages are done through the FHA, through their home equity conversion mortgage program. If grandma lived so long that she's upside down, she owes more than her home is worth. If the heirs want to keep the property, FHA says you can get an appraisal done through them and you can buy that home at 85% of the appraised value. So if you want to keep that home in the family, you always can. But again, tons of misconceptions around reverse mortgages. They can be a good planning tool. They can be a good way for people to age in place. Good way for people to live a higher standard of living in retirement when they didn't save enough as much in other assets as they would have hoped to. It's just really important to shop and talk to someone trustworthy because you can get really, really screwed on those loans.
No, good stuff. I mean, I know we don't we don't cover reverse mortgages. I should probably do a video on it. It is, again, we talked about egregious earlier, and I don't want to throw everybody under the bus because not everybody that does or focuses on reverse mortgages is like that. But again, there's a lot of money to be made, and it's a very, very shady side of the business as far as I'm concerned. But that's a whole different conversation. Stefan has a good comment here. Speaking of escalation, earlier I was talking about escalation clauses. I was all for it when my realtor offered it as a solution to a winning bid on a house. The seller used my top escalation price to leverage it against the other buyer. So yeah, there is the potential risk, right? Is that somebody says, "Hey, this is my escalation. I'm willing to go up to this price." And that's my top, and the agent uses that and says, "Hey, listen, you need to be here or go higher." That is a risk, right? But if that's your top and somebody is willing to pay more than your top, it is what it is, right? I mean, if you're upset because you would have paid the price higher, then you should have a higher escalation clause or leave the escalation clause with no top. I mean, there's risk involved in that as well. I'm not saying it's not a win for everyone, and I'm not saying that by any means. It's just a way to say, hey, listen, if I'm not going to get a counter back, if there's a chance that I don't get a counter back, I'm going to throw this out there in hopes that at least that they see my escalation and say, okay, you're the top offer. Now, if they end up countering you anyway, you could always come back with that. Or in some cases, like you said, they might take what the number that you're willing to do and ask another buyer, hey, are you willing to do this? And the deal gets done. So that's the problem with multiple offer situations. That's the problem with, there's definitely a lack of transparency in the real estate industry with regards to offers coming in, how they're presented. There's a lot of I wouldn't say missing pieces because the pieces are there. It's just a matter of how they're presented and what have you, and get lost in translation and what have you. They're still a part of this business that is very old school. But if you're at risk and you want to be in the game, maybe that escalation clause allows you to do it. It's not for everyone, but it's an opportunity to put it out there.
Hey, Jeb, this sort of
Yep.
piggybacks on that question. Lovely M says, do you think certain practices are here to stay no matter how the market fluctuates? Example, waiving contingencies. And this really relates back to
Yep.
buyer's market, seller's market, right? It really, who has the leverage? All of these
Yeah.
things are tools that sellers can use in a strong seller's market that will go away when you get back to a neutral or a buyer's market.
Absolutely. I mean, I will tell you the last couple of offers I've put in, I'm trying to think here. I'm trying to go through them in my head. Put in one today on an off-market property, right? Not on the market. We didn't waive any contingencies, or well, I'm sorry, we did. We're a cash offer, so we waived the appraisal and the loan, but we still have an inspection and that sort of thing in place. We didn't waive anything. The last couple of offers I've put in, we haven't waived anything, but we also haven't gotten accepted either. So I wouldn't, it's definitely not here to stay. As the market starts to transition, a little bit more equally, you're going to see less of that. But I don't know that that's going to be anytime soon, unfortunately. And I think it depends on your market, right? If you've got more supply in your market, less competition, you probably have to do less of this. But if you're in a market where there's 4, 5, 6, 10, 20, whatever number of offers, you're going to see at least a couple of them do that in order to be competitive, unfortunately.
And Jeb, staying on that topic of buyers, sellers market, Coco followed up and said, wow, surprised they're still doing over ask and multiple offers in California. We're done with that in Maryland. Can you offer under ask? And prices have been following for 2 months now. We'll dig into that. I'd love to see it. We have a couple of really high-end mortgage professionals that I'm tight with that are in the Maryland market. So we can reach out to them. Jeb and I can research those numbers. And then Ken actually followed up here and said, where I am, he didn't say where he's at. He said, where I am, mortgage applications have almost stopped and inventory is back to pre-COVID levels. People that were holding out have jumped in, probably a little too late. So it's interesting. The MBA just released their figures today. They do it every Wednesday, and purchase applications are still at near all-time highs. So I don't know anywhere that they've stopped or that they break it down to state levels. But Ken, if you have a state or some data that you're referencing there in terms of loan applications having stopped, we'd love to look at it.
Yeah, no, I saw a comment here a minute ago that I wanted to put out there. taking a stab at real estate agents. Uncle Sarkis. Also, don't forget your agent probably plays golf with the other agent on the weekends or earlier today. So don't let them know all your information because they work together to raise the price. Here's the deal. That is not the case for
what
one. But
what would the
secondly, let me tell
incentive
you how
be?
playing golf and having relationships with other agents in the business works. 2 days ago, contacted a friend, agent in the business, and said, hey, I know you do business in this community. Are you aware of any properties that aren't on the market that might be willing to be able to, that somebody's willing to sell? Yeah, I'm willing. I know somebody that might be. Okay, well, I have a client that's willing to buy in there. What are they looking for? Oh, that's what they have. Okay, what price are you looking at? This is the price. Sounds like a good price. Let me call my client. Called his client right there. Client said, write it up. We wrote an offer. Guess what? We're probably going to get it accepted today because I play golf with that guy. Not because we're trying to raise prices, but because we're having a conversation about property that's not on the market. In this business, find an agent that has relationships in the business, and you might be able to find some of that stuff. And I'm not tooting my own horn. I'm just saying, everybody has this crappy perception of real estate agents, and rightfully so to some extent, because there's a lot of scum out there. There's a lot of people out there that do unethical stuff in order to get, their offers accepted or in order to get dual agency or whatever it is. But with that being said, there's also a lot of good people out there trying to do good, trying to help clients, trying to help, buyers, sellers, help people on YouTube, spending 2 hours of my Wednesday night, providing you guys with information you can use to better yourself in this market. That's the goal here, right? To provide education and let you guys make the decisions, right? We're not telling you to buy. We're not telling you to sell. We're just here answering your questions and giving you the insight, so to speak, so that you can make informed decisions. So I'll step
Jeb,
off my
Jeb, what I
soapbox.
would follow up with on that is 100% correct that there are unethical people in any business. And if there's two agents that are working out of the same office, under the same brokerage, trying to go dual agency, maybe they conspire to raise the price. But in a standard transaction, a buyer's agent has all the incentive in the world to work for their buyer's benefit. The way we can do more loans, the way we can do more sales is to represent our clients to the best of our ability so that they want to refer their friends and family over. Conspiring to raise a price doesn't benefit the buyer's agent whatsoever. So the fact that two agents know each other and get together, it's sort of silly. It would be like, hey, if the two lawyers went out to golf on the weekend, they're going to come and they're going to try and arrange a settlement in one side's favor. No, they're still going to win. Jeb's competitive when he goes in golf. He's not really good at it, but he's competitive when he goes in golf. He's competitive at real estate too. He wants to win both of those transactions.
Let's hear. This is a good question. Jameson Jones. I like the name. I'd love to hear how these sky high prices can be sustainable in places that don't have a tech industry, average salary doesn't match home prices, and is not a booming tourist location. So there's a lot of places at the moment that don't have any of those, where people have seen prices go up. Let's take, let's name a city, Josh. You're in Idaho. Where are you?
Coeur
You're in
Idaho.
Washington, right?
Coeur d'Alene, Idaho is the
But you
most
could say that's a
absurd.
tourist location. It's not a
It's
booming
not
tourist.
though. It's nuts. I mean, the building. I've been looking there for probably 10 years, thinking, hey, at some point we'll buy, and when we retire, it would be a nice place to live for the summer months, and then have a place in the desert for the winter when it gets cold. My aunt and uncle's what they've had for the last 15, 20 years, and it's awesome. And you look at these numbers, and they're insane. So, Jameson, the way I would answer this question is that any market that I would be interested in, I would be looking at area median incomes and then multiples to the median home prices and just seeing how they look relative to historical figures. Because what's happening in North Idaho and probably Southern Idaho also, but Southern Idaho is different in that you have families leaving California for Southern Idaho, and they've gone from $200,000 houses to $500,000 houses. North Idaho is nuts. Homes that were $350,000 are $1 million. Homes that were $500,000 are $1.7 million. And there is no industry there that provides jobs like that. The only thing that's happened is Southern California retirees who bought their homes in the 70s, selling for $1.2 million, and then walking away with $1 million cash, and then go buy $1.5 million house with a $500,000 mortgage at 3%. It's pretty easy for them to qualify. So some of the stuff does seem out of whack. And what I've heard from family in the area, in the business in North Idaho, is that they benefited largely from people being able to relocate and take their jobs, from the Seattle area, from the Bay Area, from Southern California. Now, if that changes at some point and employers say, hey, if you're going to work remotely, I'm going to reduce your income, or hey, we have plenty of workers now, we're not letting people work remotely, we want to be back in the high rises in the city, it could absolutely change. So I would be lying if I said I have an answer to this, but it's definitely a mystery that you look at. Like I certainly understand if you're 65 and you're retiring and you look at your stock and savings and it's through the roof and you go, I can afford a $2,500 mortgage for the last 15, 20 years of my life and have this bitchin' house. I can see people doing it. I don't understand the younger people being willing to pay really top dollar for homes and really going up in a rapid time frame. So not to get bogged down on one specific market, but homes in North Idaho that were 700,000 3 years ago, or 1,600,000, 1,700,000, like doubling or going up 800 to 1,000,000 in 3-4 years. That's not rational.
No, agreed. Let's see here. We got a couple questions that I was going to click on. I've lost them, or comment rather. Wasim says the Zillow owned home in Santa Clarita sold for almost 8% below list price. A comparable property in the same area sold for more than the Zillow one. Is Zillow in a rush to sell, or was this a one-off? It's hard to say. I don't know how many properties they're actually selling themselves and how many properties they're selling in bulk. My understanding is that the majority of what they're selling is, unless it was already on the market, is being sold in bulk. I don't know that they're selling anything individually based on what I've read. As I mentioned earlier in the show, they just sold 2,000 homes to one company who plans to rent them out. There's more interest in talking to other companies with regards to them purchasing other properties. So don't know. I don't know. I mean, did they buy it for too much to begin with? I mean, if you've watched me for any period of time, I've given you examples of properties that I sold in communities where I knew that Zillow had made offers on similar properties well above what I thought that property was worth. And I didn't have any idea why they were doing it or whatever. Come to find out, algorithm maybe been a bit off, or whoever was making the decisions was not making smart ones at that. So hard to say why it sold for 8% less without knowing the context and everything going on. But I don't know that they're the writing's already on the wall, right? They've already laid it out there, so to speak, with regards to what's going on. They're publicly traded. I don't know why at this point they would be in a rush to sell anything. With the market still moving sideways to up, especially in a Santa Clarita market. It's at this point, it's try to save face as much as you can, so that you don't continue, to lose investors and what have you. But who knows?
So we just gave two sort of half-assed answers where we couldn't give a definitive answer. So let's go back and pat ourselves on the back. Joel Shane Hoffman comes back, $3 a gallon in central Wisconsin, and we did pronounce it correctly, and he is German and he does love beer. So that was the one question that we answered absolutely correctly.
Hey, listen, you nailed half of it, and I knew just from the Hoffman that he loved beer. So there we go. I actually, I went to, I forget which one I did Oktoberfest years ago, and went to the main beer garden there on opening day, and let's just say those people can drink beer. Holy cow!
Did you wear the outfit?
Huh? I didn't wear the outfit, but I'll tell you a true story. So sidetrack here. So we get there like 5 a.m. I forget what time. It was like super early as they open these doors. And I forget what time they open. Maybe it was 6, maybe it was 7.
Do they start drinking beer at 5 a.m?
Oh, bro. Do they? And so we go in and we're sitting. It's like we're at I forget which tent it is. It's like the main one anyway. So we get in and we're at this picnic table, and we're like, one of my buddies at the time lived in Germany. And so we're there and we're starting drinking like 7 a.m. And so they, I'm coming from America, right? Dumb American. That I'm going to challenge these guys to how many beers we can drink. And they're like the big, just massive mugs. The what the hell are they called? The Steins. And dude, like 2-3 of those things in, Dunzo. So like walking out of that place,
6
bro,
a.m. You're under the picnic table at 6
I mean,
a.m.
I don't remember what time we left. Let's just say noon. But when we left, it was like dead bodies, bro. They were laying everywhere. Like I swear to God, you walk out of the tents, there are people laying on the ground everywhere. Like I don't know if they were just napping or they're all like just completely drunk. But just like it was like you walked out of a war, bro.
You thought they were drunk. They were just getting ready for the afternoon drinking.
Probably. I could probably find a picture somewhere.
Jeb,
Anyway, let's.
I thought we had the best comment of the day, and then I realized I was being dumb. So Suk Purewal comes back and says, in Grand Theft Auto, the average house price is $1 million. And I thought for sure that was the greatest one. But then he mentioned in his previous comment that he's in Toronto. So it's the greater Toronto area, not house prices in Grand Theft Auto.
GTA. All right. There are new Zillow homes. So Dan says there are new Zillow owned homes for sale today in Los Angeles. So, Dan, are those homes at close to asking price? Or are they being sold significantly less? What are you seeing there? Let us know. See prices.
And
So,
even that,
we always have a variation of this question too, asking us what we're going to see in another market. So obviously Josh and I are based in Southern California. Can't really talk to Atlanta. Don't know the Atlanta market at all. I'm from the East Coast, but things change over time, and Atlanta's always been a hot market. But it's what I will tell you is pay attention to supply, right? Pay attention to supply and demand. If things tend to sit a little bit longer, you start to see price reductions, not on one property, not on two properties, but kind of as a whole. When you start to see things starting to flatten, settle, you're sign, more commonalities just than a couple of homes, right? Because there's thousands of homes on the market. Typically, you need to see more than just a handful in order to make a decision. But when you start to see that, you're going to see more of a softening market. I don't know what you're going to do, but what I can tell you here in Southern California, 6 months from now, I think prices are going to be higher than they are now. Now, does that mean I think we're going to see 10% from, in 6 months? No, but I do think that the home prices are going to go up. And I think, honestly, I believe that a year from now as well. So I think the end of 2022, you're going to have home prices higher than they are now. That doesn't mean, I'm not saying significant. I'm just saying I think prices as a whole are going to be higher. Now, you're going to have some areas of the country where that's not the case, right? Some of that demand that's been out there to get out of different states and move to some of these remote areas, and they saw it during the pandemic. You're not going to see the growth that you saw during that year, right? It wasn't a one-off, but it was kind of a one-off to some extent, right? People wanted to get more remote, wanted to get more rural, but as things start to normalize a little bit, you're going to have less people wanting to really do that, in my opinion. Josh, what are your thoughts on prices just in general, 6 months to a year?
No, I would say the same thing. It comes down to supply and demand. Most areas of the country do not have enough homes. There's nothing going to change that supply demand dynamic as prices have gone up. And if interest rates were to continue going up, it will decrease demand just because there's always going to be a willing demand, people willing to buy homes, but able demand, people that can qualify and will make that offer. So Jeb was dead on. Look, if you're looking at tools like Zillow or Redfin, look at the days on market. So if you have a search set up and it pulls up 4 or 5 new homes a week for you, keep looking at those when they go pending. How long does it take them to go pending? How long does it take them to close? Really, it comes down to how long homes stay on the market, and are they selling at a discount, and are they having to have price cuts? I'm not saying it doesn't happen in other markets. It's just anything priced reasonably for us in our market. And Jeb obviously is not selling homes throughout the state of California. We do financing throughout the state of California and everywhere, Central Valley, Bay Area. Obviously, San Diego's been nuts. Inland Empire, everywhere is strong, and they're different buyer types, different socioeconomic, job, all of that stuff. So it's not like, hey, there's one group of people that's suffering or on the wrong side of a buyer seller market, but you need to look at your area. How is the local economy doing? How is the local economy expected to do? And track days on market and track price reductions. Those are important things to be seen, because every week we get over here in the comment section, hey, I saw 2 price reductions in my market this week. Okay, cool. You could have 2 horrifically overpriced homes, or it could be signs of really a slowing market. Just as you're looking at things, ignore the doom and gloom headlines of a softening market. The market has to soften. By the time we get to the end of the year, we're probably going to look at year over year home price inflation of like 17 to 18%. That cannot happen. If you had 3 years of that, if you had 2 years of that, you're going to have a close to 40% aggregate increase in home values. It's too much, too fast. Cannot happen. So that doesn't mean the home prices are going to crash, but it would mean that you would have a really long period of flat values if you didn't have some sort of short-term correction and shock. Those are the only two options there. So I don't think we're anywhere near that. You're good in the near to midterm, and we'll keep analyzing the numbers, and we'll keep looking at as many markets as we can. As people ask, Atlanta's one that comes up often.
Yeah. Now, and I'm going to post a comment here that I think is one of the most inaccurate statements when it comes to people talking about housing. And what goes up must come down. No. I mean, yes, at some point prices are going to come down, but what are they going to come down to, and where are they going to come down from? Like when people make that statement, typically they mean, well, prices are going to come back down to where they were before this started happening. Well, what the hell does that mean? Like you're not going, in my opinion, you're not going to see prices from 2018 ever again in most markets out there. In Southern California, you're not going to see homes, in the community I live in, that they're now over million, 1 million, 2 million, 3. You're not going to see $700,000 homes in there again. You're just not going, it's not going to happen. It's there too much demand. I don't care what happens with supply. You've reached this level of prices not going the other direction, at least my thought. So yes, things are going to moderate at some point. Prices are going to pull back, but what does that mean? Rates are going to maybe pull back. Maybe they're going to go up. I mean, all things go up must come down. No. Yeah, demand is going to slow. Inventory is going to build, but what's the context, and what are you trying to accomplish with that mindset? Because in this market, yeah, it might go down, but it's going to go down from a higher point. So anyway, Josh, any questions you see there that you want to add, touch on?
No, there's just a little conversation back and forth in here going on escalation clauses, and I wish I had the first question here. But basically, one of the viewers had just asked, "Okay, so I want to use an escalation clause. How do I make sure that I'm not getting screwed?" And Uncle Sarkis here followed up and basically said that he didn't have them prove that they had another offer for more, and he ended up getting taken advantage of in his situation. So it's absolutely possible. But Jeff,
No, for sure, it is.
if you have a client who wants to use an escalation clause, how are you protecting them from being taken advantage of?
I mean, honestly, here's the deal. Like you can structure it from the buyer standpoint as, hey, look, this is what I'm willing to do. Let's just use some examples. Properties listed at 500,000. You make an offer at 500,000, but you're willing to pay 510, right? Just for our conversation here. So it's written $500,000 purchase price. I'm willing to pay X amount above the highest offer up to $510,000 with proof of that other offer, right? So I want proof that there's another offer. Now, a lot of people are going to say, well, they're just going to make an offer, right? They're just going to provide an offer that's not real and whatever. Call the agent on the other offer. Find out. I mean, if that agent seriously wants your offer to be accepted, they should be able to provide how they got there. Listen, I mean, if you're an agent that makes an offer on my property and using an escalation clause, and you ask for that, my seller and I are going to have a conversation and say, hey, listen, this is the deal. They're asking for this and they're willing to go to this price, but they want to see the offer. Are we okay doing that? Yeah, we're okay doing it. Okay. So, and that's the question there is, like, you probably can't include sellers' names, but you could probably provide the agent information. There's nothing wrong with that. Why can't you provide agent information? You can't provide their financials or anything like that, but you could provide enough information for them to know that it's a solid transaction. I've provided transaction details before on escalation clauses. Everyone was okay and moved forward with it. But to answer your question, how do you not get screwed? I mean, that's a hard question to answer, right? I mean, you hope the motives of people doing the transaction are ethical and that everybody is doing what, is in the best interest of, the sellers themselves, the agents doing what they're supposed to do. But at the end of the day, like Josh said earlier, there are people, shady people in every business, and You can only control what you can control, right? And so you can't go into every transaction thinking someone's going to get you, right? The boogeyman isn't under every bed. You can only make your best offer, and if it doesn't get accepted, you have to move on. I mean, it's a very pragmatic approach. I understand that, right? There's not a lot of emotion there, but that's the facts. Your other option is you don't make an offer and you don't get the property either way. So you're
Jeb,
in the same boat.
tell me this: does the multiple counter, does the escalation clause work like a multiple counter? After they come back and they say, "Cool, we're going to take yours at 1,000 over our top price," you still have to accept that offer back from them, right? So
Correct.
if you thought you were being taken advantage of, here, just a follow up question from Stefan is saying here, I offer 1,000 over my top. Is it legal for the selling agent to tell the other buyers what my escalation goes up to? Isn't that the point of an escalation? Feeling frustrated. So it's almost like he wants a blind bidding situation where everyone puts that in and they're obligated to accept whichever is the best. What I would think most likely happened in this, there was a very strongly qualified client, maybe all cash, big down payment, fantastic qualifications, that was close to you. And they went back and said, hey, we're going to take this offer that's for more money unless you will match it, because we would take your more qualified offer.
100%.
So even if you felt like you were getting leveraged and they come back and go, okay, cool, we got an offer for 50,000 over your price, we're going to take yours, you still have to accept that offer. It's not a contract. And even if it was, if you don't make a deposit, you've never really ratified that contract. So it's not like you have some sort of risk in an escalation clause where you're obligated. You wrote it in the offer. Now they can force you to buy at that price. There's 47 ways to get out of that contract with consumer-friendly contract law in the United States.
No, agreed. I mean, to answer Stefan's, like California, there is no there's nothing that says you can't disclose what the other offers are, right? I mean, you could tell everybody what every offer is if you wanted to, if the seller decides that, and everybody decides they want to do that. So there's again, nothing preventing them from going and saying, hey, listen, this offer came in at this. Are you willing to do this? It's unfortunate, but there's nothing you can do. Again, I mean, it's a crappy way of answering it or commenting, but it is what it is, right? You either make the offer and you get the property because you went the escalation clause, or you don't get the property because you didn't make an offer and you're in the same boat. I mean, all you can do is put your best foot forward, right? You can control what you can control. And this isn't me lecturing you. This is just the mindset from somebody on the outside. This is your best, then let's put your best and see where the chips fall. I've had escalations get accepted many times. In fact, I've had escalation clause never escalate, right? In a multiple offer situation, we're willing to do this up to this price with proof of another offer. We were the highest offer to start, so we didn't even have to escalate. Could they have come back and said, we have an offer at whatever price? And sure, they could have. In fact, I had two this year that didn't escalate. One, we offered $1,015,000. I think if I remember correctly, we were willing to go to $1,060,000 or $1,075,000 in that ballpark. One was at 1.3, and we were willing to go to $1,325,000, and both of them we got it at the purchase price. So it's not all doom and gloom. It's not all bad out there. Yes, it can happen. It's very hard to prevent unless there's something I'm missing.
Well, you're missing that, as Uncle Sarkis says, you're all buddy, and you all want to screw every buyer out there.
That's what my goal is in life. Yeah.
Yeah.
Screw my buddy.
We've talked about this before. Like, listen, I'm hard on realtors and mortgage professionals in that it's full-blown 80-20. That doesn't mean 80% of them are dirtbags. It means that 80% of them are not good at their jobs, meaning that even if they had the best of intentions, they're not capable of representing you in a way that you need to be represented. And then you combine that with mass media marketing that says, oh, this is easy, get a kickback from the realtor, push button, get mortgage. So it's just easy, right? Everyone's making money. They shouldn't make money. That should be your money. And then I get multiple calls every week. We close multiple loans every month from people who are crying me a river about, well, we thought, the Rocket was going to be great. Their commercials are so awesome. And here we are 2 weeks from closing and they say, I don't qualify. Okay, well, the good news is they're wrong. The bad news is you're dumb for having believed that there's a push button, get mortgage, and there's a free ride out there. The numbers are out there. If you do the research, you know that the big call center lenders are kids with no experience, and in return for this wonderful engineer, JD Power #1 experience, what do? You get to pay higher rates and fees. So long way of saying, I don't think there's a ton of unethical people in our industry. There's pretty hefty background checks for both sides of the aisle. Does it mean that it doesn't happen? No, it does. One of my best realtors on the grievance committee for the Pacific West Association of Realtors. It's one of the big real estate associations in Orange County, and she sees stuff that she tells me about. I'm like, yeah, it blows your mind that there's people so dumb that it really is criminal behavior, but so dumb and obvious and blatant. And I would go back to saying, again, vet the people you're working with. It is, I'm not saying it's the consumer's fault or their problem that someone took advantage of them, but for the most part, there were giant red flags everywhere through that transaction. They should have told them, don't work with these people.
No, good stuff. Marcella, not sure if I want to use the realtor I'm speaking with now. She wants to know who my lender is. Should I let them know who it is if I'm not sure I'll be using them? Absolutely. As a real estate agent, if you come to me and you have been pre-qualified, say I want to know who your lender is. I want to have a conversation with that lender. I want to see the pre-approval letter. Yeah, it's imperative that your lender knows, or your realtor knows who your lender is. In fact, I mean, those people should be communicating and kind of working together to get you the transaction, quite frankly, even though they're two separate people, in most cases, two separate companies, the whole thing. They're lock and step. I mean, you're working together to get to the end goal. Now, even if you're not planning on using them, it's okay. Like, you can change, let your lender know that, or your realtor know that, hey, I was going to use so-and-so, but I've changed my mind. I'm going to use X. Okay, that's fine. I mean, the realtor shouldn't really care who you use as long as the lender has done their job. And that's all we want to know as real estate agents is the lender has actually done their job. They've actually qualified you. They've gone through, and actually reviewed tax returns, bank statements, credit reports, everything, right? Financials, and seeing, okay, no, you are qualified. You're good to go. That's the conversation I want to have with that lender. Hey, are we good to go? What type of financing? All that. Yeah, great. But it's nothing that you should be, as a consumer, as a buyer, worried about, that the two want to, that one wants to know who the other is.
And Jeb, I think Maricela is actually asking specifically the opposite side. She doesn't know if she's going to work with this realtor. So I might work with this realtor. They want to know who my lender. Should I have my lender talk with them? So I can give you guys an example right here.
Yeah.
I have a client who, he's a unique guy. He was very honest with everyone, but he's worked with 5 different realtors through the process. And I have talked to all 5 of them and assured all of them of his qualifications. And they all knew exactly what he was doing, and he had a reason for it. And they were okay with it, hoping that they would be the one that put under contract. But there's no problem in me talking to any of them. I'm not going to tell them your personal financial information. We're going to stress to them your qualifications, ask to be included on any offer, so we can follow up and have that same conversation with the listing agent. So there's really no reason not to connect your lender with the realtor, even if it's not the realtor that you're going to use. Just connect them with the next one if you decide to move on.
There you go. Jason Good came in and basically said, invest your money in your health and exercise. It's always a good investment. Anyway, just thought I'd throw that out there.
Like a new shoulder, like buy a new shoulder.
Yeah, you should buy a new shoulder like Josh did. I have a picture that your wife sent me of the staples in your shoulder.
Throw it up. It looks like Frankenstein. I got 30 staples in.
I'd have to find it. Give me a minute. We'll find a question. I'll let you go down a rabbit hole on the question, and then I'll find the picture if people want to see it.
All right.
Let's see. KG has a question here. Let's see. Nope.
So here's the fun part. Let me just throw this one up there. We can't rabbit hole on this one. Hank says price reductions everywhere. Give me your city, I'll find them. Cool. Correct. There's overpriced homes in every market in the United States, and either they take them off the market or they reduce the price. Price reductions don't tell you anything about the market. Aggregate price reductions across the entire market and time on market will tell you the data. So digging through Zillow or Redfin, you're not getting anything interesting or helpful or insightful. So we talk about this every week. I totally get it. There were several comments, Jeb, that you and I didn't pop up here. People saying, I'm tired of being a buyer in this market. And I 100% get it. I'd be pissed and tired of being a buyer too. Once you're an owner, you would love this market because you're building equity. Things are great. Things are moving forward. But almost, I can tell you who the commenters are over here by what they're commenting. Hey, there's going to be a better time for me, aka I got priced out of the market, and anytime now we're going to go back to 2015 prices, and I'm going to buy in. I'm going to laugh at you guys. It's not fun being a buyer. I don't expect anyone to look at this and go, hey, this is awesome. But the numbers justify what has happened. We had some distortions due to COVID and low interest rates, but rates are going to go lower. 5 years from now, we're going to have lower rates than we do today. And if you don't understand how that supports higher home prices, can't help you.
Now, good stuff. So I do have Josh's shoulder here. I'm not sure. I'll throw it on to the end so anybody that gets grossed out can just leave.
I'm out.
So Jay Homeboy, can sellers say not doing counters, then after they see the count offers, do counters? Also, how many counters can a seller do? I've been in situations where the seller countered the top 10, then the top 3. So sorry about that. Yes. Yeah. A seller can essentially change their mind, right? Typically you don't want that as the listing agent, the seller to say submit your highest and best and then go back and then ask for it, but it does happen. So yeah, the answer is yeah there. How many can they do? They can do as many as they want. They can counter everyone. They can counter half of them. They can counter, once they receive them back, they can counter them again if they want. I mean, they're really in control of the negotiation for the most part, at least in this environment. So there's no limit, and they can change their mind and do things. They can say, hey, we're going to do counters, and then get an offer and say, you know what, we're not going to do them. So just keep that in mind out there when making offers.
We got a good one here from Jennifer. For some reason, she's asking you specific income type questions, so we'll forgive her. But what kind of documentation do I need to show the loan officer my pay increased by 10%? So the important part here is that we're not talking about variable pay. I get people all the time say, hey, I've been working a ton of overtime the last 6 months, so I'm making about $6,000 a month. And you look and they have base income of 3,000 and overtime of 3,000. And we need to average that variable income over the last 1.5 to 2 years. So if we're talking about a true pay increase, you're making $20 an hour and they bump you to $22 an hour. You're making $80,000 a year and they bump you up to $88,000 a year. All we need is a verification of employment and then that pay stub showing the new pay rate. And we had one here that we just closed that we had a partial pay rate. They got a raise. We knew it was coming at the end. Actually, we just closed Mallory's loan yesterday on Tuesday. And the last condition we had was to get that pay stub that it was a half a week at her old pay rate, half a week at her new pay rate. And we literally didn't qualify with her old pay rate. We did qualify with the new pay rate. She went from like $22 an hour to $26 an hour. And it took the ratios from just over the limit to just under the limit. And we were perfect.
All right. Good stuff. Stephanie Paul, I started a side hustle that made more than my full-time W-2 job this year. Will lenders look at that income, specifically if I want to qualify for grants or down payment assistance? So outside of that, Stephanie, we'd love to know what that side hustle is. But Josh, how long do you need on the side hustle to be able to do it, to use it?
Your best case is a full year of it on tax returns. The only other real option you might have would be a bank statement loan. And the problem for most of the people who are here asking questions, they're first-time buyers trying to get into the market. They don't have big down payments. Some of you do, but for the most part, we're talking 3 to 5 to 10% down FHA and conventional and VA buyers. Bank statement loans at 10% down are in the mid to high 4s. Bank statement loans at 25% down are in the low 3s. So most likely you don't have the down payment that's going to make you comfortable with the interest rate on a bank statement loan. So you're looking at least 1 year of that side hustle being on the tax return. Your worst case would be 2 full years of it being on there to get a solid average.
All right, we're going to go one more question here. Josh, I'm just going to throw it to you and let you answer this one. We'll keep it short because I've actually got to run. But Don and Bev Perkins, why will rates be lower in 5 years? How low can they go? If we actually get 3 to 5% inflation for a while, wouldn't that cause mortgage rates to be higher than that? So I'm not asking you to predict where rates are going to be in 3 to 5 years, but let's just talk about inflation. Inflation being 3 to 5%, what do you think that does to rates?
I don't think that we're going to have 3 to 5% inflation. The inflation has lasted longer than we thought. And there's some things in there that like really smart economists are wrestling with and not coming up with good answers. So when you look at it, we talked about this a little earlier in the show, we have supply chain issues. So there's not enough goods getting to market. And then we have demand issues that, due to all of the stimulus, we have a lot of money chasing very few goods, and to a lesser degree, services. If you look, our inflation has been in goods. We were a largely service-based economy. The service economy has stagnated a little bit while the goods economy has grown. So I don't think that trends that have existed for 30 years are getting turned around by COVID. Everything's getting distorted, and it may take longer to get back to normal than what we think. But again, the answer to this is that the long-term answer is our government is going to be $30 trillion in debt. That's on balance sheet debt. They actually owe more than that when you have stuff like Social Security that doesn't fall on there. When you get over indebted, debt as a percentage of gross domestic product, it decreases growth and GDP going forward. That's deflationary. You have lower interest rates. So we have this blip. Could this blip dig in and last longer than we thought or expected earlier in the year? Absolutely. And even we go back to October of 1982 when interest rates peaked. We're now going on 40 years of decreasing interest rates. That doesn't mean there hasn't been a year or two at a time where rates have gone higher. We could see that. I could be wrong, and 2022 could be higher interest rates. They're not going to the moon. They're not going to 3.75 or 4 that most economists think would really start putting a little bit of brakes on the real estate sales. But they could go higher. We could see 3.5, 3.625, 3.75. But the long-term trend is absolutely for lower interest rates, and that will support higher home values. And when we look at this and you go, it's unintended consequences of the government manipulating interest rates to supplement their borrowing, to keep their borrowing affordable. So what happens? We talk about income equality. So again, I don't care about your politics, left, right. All politicians love to get up and say, we have income inequality. This is bullshit. We have to fix this. Then they say, we're going to go borrow more money, which leads to lower interest rates in the long haul, and it inflates the cost of assets. Well, guess who doesn't have assets? The people on the wrong side of the income inequality equation. The people that do have assets, they look around and they go, hey, this is wonderful. I'm getting rich over here because the government keeps borrowing more money, pushing down borrowing costs, pushing up the price of hard assets. Doesn't make it right. It doesn't make it good. My job isn't to sit here and tell you guys what you want to hear. My job is to analyze what I see and where we see it going. I would love for all of these things to get corrected, and we would go back to a normal economy where home prices, instead of being $1.2 million in me and Jeb's market, are 700,000, and interest rates are 5.5–6%, and you can put your money in your bank account and get a 3.5% yield on your checking account. That world is long gone, and it's not coming back anytime soon. Depending on your age, I'm 48. Like, what do I got? 20, 30 years left, hopefully 35 or 40. Those things don't correct in that time frame. Like the scope of the problem is so big that it doesn't correct in my lifetime, and absolutely not in my working lifetime where I'm doing loans and making a living, providing financing for people. And it does, it sucks. Like we do the majority of our purchases for first-time buyers. But when I say majority, it's like 60-40 of purchases to first-time buyers to move-up buyers. But who do we have the greatest joy in helping? Like, yeah, it's nice to close $1 million loan and make a big commission, but it's not nearly as gratifying as closing a $300,000 mortgage and helping a single mom get a home for her and her daughter. Like, it sounds corny, but we make good money on both of those loans, and being able to help that person and change their life. You had someone who came from the show earlier this year that literally they were in tears the day they closed and told me the story that husband and wife, they had just had a daughter, and they both grew up in apartments, had never lived in a home that was owned. And when they got pregnant, they said, we are buying a house. We are not going to raise our daughter in an apartment. So we sort of got off topic of where interest rates are, but I say things factually, not because that's the way I want them to be or it's the way they should be. It's actually the opposite. It's the opposite. It's not the way I want them to be. It's not the way they should be, but it's the way they are. And I don't see things that are going to be changing it.
No, good stuff. You know, I know normally, good answer there, Josh. And one thing you said there, we say things factually, right? And that's, my channel is built around that. It's what I see, right? Some of it's insight, what I think I see, but it's not me telling you that because that's the way I want it to be. It's just what is out there, right? It's what's happening, and that's the way I try to enlighten my subscribers and my viewers out there, and those that support me. And I, so that's what it is. But with that said, guys, I have to cut it short tonight. I have a soccer party to go to. Yeah, soccer, baby.
Can we get pizza?
We get pizza tonight. Pizza, no wings tonight. We get pizza. But if you made it through, you're still watching, you enjoyed this at all, you found any value, hit the thumbs up, maybe share it with somebody that you know. Next Wednesday is the day before Thanksgiving. I don't know, Josh, are we going to be here the day before Thanksgiving on a Wednesday night? Are people even watching this on a Wednesday night before Thanksgiving? I don't
Maybe,
know.
maybe,
Maybe,
maybe we should have a wings giving. Maybe we do like an hour and we'll have wings giving. You get some wings, I'll get some wings. We'll eat wings and answer some questions.
maybe we'll do that. So I'll put a poll out this week if you guys want to see a live on Wednesday, next Wednesday at 5. But appreciate you guys being here as always. Thank you for the love, the support. We will see you again soon, guys. Adios, adios, adios.